Hello and welcome to this tutorial on the topic of using the intelligent model discovery workflow within config modeling. So this is an example of what we call an embedded workflow, which automates a process. This process is able to, you point it at a reference device. It is able to interrogate that device, identify all the network features configured on it, and then actually create network automation policy within the Gluware system, basically create the automation models for you. So it's a way to onboard network features and network automation very quickly. So let's jump into it. I'll get signed into Gluware here. So I'm here in the dashboards and I'm going to navigate into Model Editor. I mentioned before that this is a workflow. So you could navigate into workflows, but this is an example of an embedded workflow. So we're actually going to access the workflow directly from within the Model Editor. So here we are in the model editor, and hopefully by this point you've watched one or two of the previous other videos on config modeling, so you're pretty familiar with the constructs and everything. Because in this video we don't have time to kind of re-describe or reteach all that, so I highly recommend the two previous videos on config modeling tutorial and in config modeling with a state assessment, which is the one that was just previous to this in the series. So what I'm going to do here is, if you have watched that one, just to kind of summarize real quick, we were at a point where, as I described, when you think about how automated features get into Gluware, I referred to three different options. One is they're built either outside or within the system and they can be shared, so they're pre-built packages. That is what we're working with in the example so far. So Gluware built a bunch of pre-built examples and packages. We're consuming those packages and then just turning them into our own automation. Another option is just to build it from scratch, and certainly that's possible. The third and maybe most exciting option is to let Gluware build the automation for you by pointing Gluware at a device that is configured properly, or you're saying that's the reference device that you would want to model the automation from. So let's take a look at what that looks like here. So the first step we're going to do here is I'm going to take spoke 1 at this particular router. This blue icon represents a router, and I'm going to remove the automation policy associated with it. So I hit save. Okay, so now I have spoke 1 and I have no Gluware automation policy associated with it. Now, either from the grid or from the icon in your node instance map, you can right click and you have a right click menu that pops up, and we're going to use the category of the workflow is called design, and we are going to launch the intelligent model discovery workflow. And this again is an embedded workflow that's within, right here within the model editor or config modeling. So let's launch the workflow, and just for sizing purposes, so this is describing what it's going to do. It's going to interrogate that particular device, identify all the features that Gluware is capable of understanding. So there's a little bit of a caveat there, and we'll get into that. Basically, Gluware has defined what we call feature binders. So we know how to read a pretty deep library of commands, and that library of binders can be extended. We continue to extend it, and even users can extend it. So the feature binder allows us to not only read the feature, but then turn it into network automation policy. So I'm going to say yes or next. So it's connecting to the device and it's invoking discovery. So similar when you provision a device in Gluware, Gluware goes through and knows how to look at the configuration, break up the configuration into individual pieces. This is just doing the next step, which is building the data modeling that Gluware uses to actually turn it in to a network automated feature. And again, if you've looked at previous tutorials, we build features that are, banner in AAA and NTP and DHCP, and the feature is made up of a number of constructs. And so Gluware can actually read them from a device and then build a reference set of constructs. So the workflow has run. So what we're going to look through here is that if we look at AAA, AAA is not configured. If I look at banner, banner is configured. So banner is a feature that's been identified and there's data there to populate. I know DMVPN is not configured. DNS is configured, so that is there. A NAC is not configured, NetFlow is not configured, NTP is configured, so we'll look at that. And let's skip QoS. Actually, QoS is configured as well on this device. I forgot it was configured. And if I look at security feature, I have ACLs and I have things on the interfaces that are configured as well. So you're going to want to think about a few things when you take a reference device and turn it into your automated, an automated policy that you may want to apply to other devices. So certain things like interface level configuration, certain parameters you may have to consider because you can't just directly apply it to another device. Things like globals, you can pretty much directly, I won't say copy paste, but you can take those globals and apply them to another device. So this is essentially Gluware reading in all these features. Now we hit next, and Gluware is going to say, okay, we've identified that these features are configured. Which of these features do you want to create network policy from? So again, banner or AAA was not configured. I'm just going to double check here. I do want banner, I want DNS, I want NTP, I'll take QoS, I'll take the security features, which are ACLs, SNMP, and syslog, and username. Okay, so we hit OK, and we say finish. So if you think about it, this is actually working a little bit the other way around. The other way around we were working was we took pre-built features, we attached to a node that we're going to then we said we're defining the policy and we're going to push this policy to that target device. This is an example of the target device has good policy on it. Maybe you've configured it manually or you validate it. Now you want to take that reference device and turn it into kind of a golden config file or a reference config file that can be used for automation. And we're going to go ahead and pull that in. So you're going to see that create. And again, Gluware is creating all the underlying constructs. So the workflow has completed. I can close out the workflow view here. Don't need that. If I bring up my node instance map, I'm going to see the results of the work. And I'm just going to resize for viewing purposes. So this is we think this is a really cool feature. We're getting great feedback from customers. It's been in the marketplace for quite a while, well over a year now. And customers really love it that they can have Gluware build the features for them. So we built the assembly. And if I just look at the assembly, again, everything that we talked about is imported: banner, DNS, NTP, QoS, security, SNMP, syslog, username. All those things are there. I'm just thinking through this a little bit, and again, there's a lot of features that are completely safe to just turn into a common policy and apply to other devices. Like, for example, banner. If I double click on the command of the banner, that is, banner, DNS, NTP. I'm looking for anything specific that would make it not work well on another device. One thing to consider is if you're pointing things at like a loopback 0, if you go to apply it to another device, you got to ensure that device has a loopback 0 interface. You could layer in abstraction and call it. You could put a variable there and call it a management interface, and then deal with that. So here's all the QoS feature, which is made up of the policy maps, the ACL, and the class map. Just taking a quick look at the policy. Everything looks good here. So this is where we're applying a security configurations onto interfaces. So this is where there's going to be some uniqueness. So just for the purposes of this demonstration, what I'm going to do is take off the security feature from the assembly. So not use it as a standard policy. And because we already did username, and we understand that username, you may or may not want to automate it, but for this purposes, again, just simplifying it, I'm going to delete that out. Now I'm down to banner, DNS, NTP, QoS, SNMP, and syslog, and I hit save. So this assembly is called iOS route. If I double click on it, I can see it here, iOS router. And then anytime the workflow creates constructs for you, it's giving it a unique identifier at the end. We're using a fairly long unique identifier right now, but just know that, that number is there just to ensure it's a unique identifier. And so what we're going to do now is back in, so everything here is already applied to spoke 1. I already know it's there. But what we're going to do now, so if we go back to the node view, what I'm going to do is take spokes 2 through 4, go to associations, and change their features to that assembly, and hit save. So now it's almost like I'm copying and pasting, but I'm doing it in a very intelligent way. I didn't do multi-edit, so let me fix that. Multi-edit, associations, save. So now I did a multi-edit across those devices. They all have the same policy. So I could read in policy from one device if I really like it, and I think that's the kind of golden config. And again, this is quick demonstration type purpose, but I then can turn around and now I can select all these devices. And just for, again, I like to view the summary level view here where we're saying, hey, look, you're out of sync on these guys because you've changed configuration around. Let's go ahead and let the engine synchronize, and I do want to, we're going to synchronize 1 through 4. So this will ensure the Gluware engine is validated. All of these are on the network layer, meaning it's going to check and ensure. And again, I could preview before I commit. Let's hit start action and proceed. And while the provisioning is running, I will look at this summary level view I like to look at because I can see here Gluware is automating 7 features and it's rolling through them here. The basic iOS router, the default iOS router is a default set of commands and things Gluware is looking at. Now it's rolling through QoS. And when you see it kind of pause, it's reading, comparing, analyzing. So banner, DNS, NTP, SNMP, syslog, and it's finished. And I can see all of my devices are now synchronized. So hopefully that is like pretty exciting for you when you think about, taking on an automation platform or something new. You might think, well, it takes so long to build automation, and when I have to take on scripting or learn whole new feature sets. We just showed you how in minutes you could pull in, a whole configuration potentially from a reference device, make it your standard policy, and then turn around and put it, push it out to a bunch of devices. And this is really just scratching the surface because you have a lot of power you could start to layer in with variables and conditionals and other things as you move on with Gluware. So hopefully this demo was and tutorial was informative and valuable for you. And we hope you continue with Gluware, and thank you for your interest.